Yeah. Well, everyone, we're going to open our podcast, Sports Car Safari podcast. What do you think of our new theme music?
I'm sure Sammy would appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Anyway, on that professional note, welcome everybody. Thursday morning, Thursday evening, Sports Car Safari podcast. Luke and myself not even in the house. How you going, Luke?
Yeah, I'm good. Can't complain. Fantastic week. Some pretty exciting things. Magazine is printed.
Hey! We have them in our hands. We will delve into the joys of that later on. But yes,
we have them. Been celebrating some Days of Thunder this week.
30 years.
30 years, and watching you and being very jealous of you buying cool cars.
As I have said, for those that don't, I bought the cheapest possible Porsche. Literally, I was trying to think of a way to buy a cheaper Porsche, and it does not exist. I bought the cheapest possible Porsche in the UK. And as I said to Luke, hold your jealousy.
A 924.
No, it wasn't a 924. It has 6 cylinders. And as I said to Luke, hold your jealousy until I work out that I haven't just purchased a lawn ornament, which is still not confirmed yet.
Well, yeah, you'd have to like stick it on a pole or something if something went wrong with it, I think.
No, if you see it disappear from our social media channels and just get quietly pushed off, and 6 months down the track you go, hey, I haven't seen many photos of the Boxster lately. Yeah. That means that it became a lawn ornament. So. Anyway. So yeah, how Days of Thunder, 30 years of the iconic movie. This is one that I've seen and I like, but Luke is obsessed with in quotes ad nauseum, as do a lot of Sports Car Safari fans. So yeah, Luke, how was it?
Yeah. So what happened?
What did you do?
What did we do? Well, myself and Michael Busby hosted a few people around our place on Saturday night. And we celebrated by wearing and dressing up in NASCAR stuff. Actually, there's some pretty funny ones. Carl Alexander wore like an open face, like white helmet, and made like goggles, and was like
amazing.
Yeah, it looked cool, like proper 90s NASCAR stuff. It was pretty funny.
Amazing.
And yeah, people wearing like jackets, and I wore some mellow yellow stuff. I'm wearing a mellow yellow hat now, which is brilliant. One
question: is mellow yellow actually something, or was that made up for the film?
No, that's something. That's a Coke brand. Oh. It's kind of like a lemonade type drink. They used to have it at Nordberger. Okay. Did you know that it was at Nordberger in the early days?
Oh, mate, maybe that was a heady time. But
early burger place days when they had like American Cola. They had Tab and they had mellow yellow and bits and pieces on there. So, but yeah, no, not made up, real.
Good.
So we did a little bit of American barbecue, made cheeseburgers, hot dogs, barbecue wings, deep fried tater tots and coleslaw and stuff, which was pretty sick. And then had an outdoor movie night, which was awesome. Put a fire pits on because it was pretty cold. Had a 4 meter, 5 meter wide screen outside and sat out in the cold and watched Days of Thunder. I mean, yeah, like for me, that's that the movie's 30 years old. I'm 34. I've probably been watching it since I was 30. Since the full 30 years. Probably a million times. My mum and dad had a everyone did recorded movies and TV shows on the VCRs straight from the TV. So they recorded Days of Thunder when I was little off the TV, and like paused it on all the like sex scenes and swearing and all that stuff in it. So it was literally like 30
which, let's be real, is still pretty vanilla. It's not exactly
no. So it was literally like 30 minutes of like just racing around and crashing and stuff. So for like, a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, it was pretty appropriate. And I vividly remember the first time I watched it, like full movie, like full spec movie. And I was just like, what's all this crap? Like, Why? What do you need that in there for? That doesn't add anything to the movie. Skip all that stuff. It's all boring. But
and then Luke turns 13 and watches it again, and then his mind just explodes.
So that's how you do
Get it now.
Do you remember the drafting scene?
That's not where I was going, but anyway.
Anyway, yeah, it was. Yeah, so that was cool. It was kind of good to see some mates again, and kind of I guess we're lucky in Adelaide. We're still tracking very, very well with COVID and the virus spread at the moment. Our numbers are extremely low, which is a bit different to our Victorian neighbours.
I haven't said anything publicly because I know we have a lot of Victorian friends and a lot of Victorian followers. So I just want to be clear. It's just purely from just an ironic observer in the UK that Daniel Andrews comes out and says, "Why would you want to go to South Australia?" And then, not a week later, their state is back in lockdown with COVID. And mate, that's sweet. That is so sweet. But also, I really like Melbourne, and we've got a lot of Victorian friends. And
I'm bummed because I was like, July 20, I was all ready to, that week head over to Melbourne, do some car stuff, shoot some stories, see my brand new baby niece that I haven't been able to see yet. And, kind of sucks. Can't do that now. So, Get Victoria.
We'll get there.
We'll get
over here.
So,
the States too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly. But Days of Thunder was cool. It was good. That movie's so good. Like, if you haven't seen the movie, you have to see it. Like, if you're a car person, you haven't seen, which there were a few people who came on Saturday night who are not 15 years old who hadn't seen it yet. So
I must admit, I've only seen it once or twice. I certainly didn't grow up on it. It was very much, it was like one of the $5 Kmart DVDs you buy and watch, and was, but I need to rewatch it, I think.
I mean, it's one of those things, like, I guess that Top Gun and that Jerry Bruckheimer kind of era of the way they shot, which I really enjoyed. So a lot of the orange filter over everything, and like that real early and real late shooting schedules, so no middle of the day stuff. So, a lot of the shots that weren't race shots were shot during that period. So you get some amazing stills of, like, NASCARs and pit crews, and just the cinematography in those sections anyway is phenomenal.
There is a scene that I remember, and as I said, I haven't seen it recently, but I think it's when they're in the barn, the workshop, and there's the beautiful driveway with the trees down it, and they've got that indie special, and they're just sort of tearing down that driveway with all the leaves. Is that Days of Thunder, or am I getting completely confused with another movie?
Indie special.
Okay. Indie special. I reckon I'm getting confused with another movie.
No, there's a barn. There's a good barn, and there's good scenes in the barn too.
Anyway,
cars and lights and everything. But I think that era and those guys, the way that they, similar to Top Gun, Tom Cruise and those same guys shooting, like, just the look and feel of it is very true, I guess, to what we kind of do with SCS in terms of natural and that golden hour and that warmy feeling of
all about the light
stuff. All about the light. So, instead of, I guess it's of that era of not everything, there was like no CGI, like everything was shot as is. So
I think in that similar thing, I know that in the earlier weeks of lockdown, I think on Instagram, following Jeff Zwart at Zwart has been fascinating, because he, in a similar era to those movies, he shot all of that high performance still photography for all the Porsche commercials and a lot of Air Force stuff and that kind of same industry. And for those that really want to geek out on this stuff, he's done some great posts where he's gone into how they shot things on the film day when there was no CGI, there was no Photoshop, and if you want to get a 964 turbo in the air jumping, you had to jump a 964 turbo and get the shot, and some of the stuff, and that just blew my mind, and I guess it's the same era of just unreal.
Yeah, I mean, and we've had this discussion a number of times, and that's about how we don't Photoshop our photos much. We do a bit of retouching in Lightroom or Aperture or something like that, but we're not layering 30 layers on a photo to get an effect. And I don't know. There's something romantic about being able to say I shot that, not I put that together. So those movies in that era really ring home for me.
So yeah, and I guess we can, we'll get into it later, but that does bring us on to issue 3, Sports Car Safari issue 3, and we'll get into the stories of that a bit later on. But yeah, I guess we just want to make early just to mention that it does exist. It is here. We are ready to launch soon. You will be able to get your copy in a couple of days. So this is not we hope this is we have it. Luke has it sitting on his desk at the moment. So yeah. So Luke, can you give us a preview, or are we going to save that for?
Oh no, I can show you now. We'll just talk about it now.
We'll just talk about it now. Let's do it.
Yeah. So here we have issue 3. No, I'm joking. That's
wrong. I was like, they really did stuff it up, didn't they? Caught you on the hot.
No. So yeah, we've had a bit of a joy with the printing in trying to get it on time. We were trying to have it at Cars and Coffee the other week, and it didn't happen. And but we've got them now, which is really cool. And we have got
That's amazing. If you're listening to the audio version, this is probably not going to be as dramatic as it is on the anyway, cover of issue 3. The shot is a beautiful Stephen Bauer image of Jordan Roddy's Murcielago RGT on the public roads in the Carmel Hills in California, which is probably one of the main feature stories of the magazine is Jordy's full restoration story of that car.
Yeah.
And as soon as we saw those photos come through, we just thought, that's for me, there was never a question. That was the cover. That was always going to be the cover as soon as we saw those pictures. As much as I'm quite proud of some of the shots I got, and I think Luke is too. As soon as I saw that, I was like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, we've got some. Yeah. Again, we've spoken about the stories we got in there, but the stuff that was shot was amazing. Interesting little bit as well, which I think will become a bit of a theme, because I think it's really cool. Is I designed the center section, the center fold, to be a poster so that you can pull it out, because it is saddle bound. It's not we're not perfect binding, which, in case you don't know, saddle stitch is staples on the side and folded, and perfect bound is where you have like a square edge and each page is like glued into place. So this is very kind of a bit raw and cool. And we've got actually I might go solo for this one on the video stream. So we've got one of the center section is
that's such a cool photo.
The Lambo overlooking the hills. And it's designed to be a poster. So the idea is, if you wanted to, you can pull it out and stick it on your wall and dream of owning a Lambo race car.
Yeah, that is
pretty cool.
That story I'm just so thrilled with, because I mean we had the idea, and Jordy has been a massive supporter of us since day one. Really, he's been amazing, and we knew the story was going to be good. I always knew the story was going to be good, but then once we started getting into it, and then once we saw the photos, it just exceeded.
That's almost a year now from when that actually happened, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So first anniversary. Luke, how can people get their hands on their hot little hands on a copy? Because I don't even have one.
There's only one copy.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. There's only one. So probably in the next few weeks we might try and do. Andrew and I were brainstorming ideas and going through what we might try and do some launch stuff, considering, just everything that's going on at the moment. And what we're going to try and do is we might just park ourselves up in the hills somewhere where people can come for a drive. In the Adelaide Hills, sorry. In the Adelaide Hills, and people can come for a drive and pick up a mag. So it's kind of a bit short notice to try and do it this weekend, to find a spot and do all that kind of stuff. We'd also love to try and have a coffee van up there too, but just trying to sort that out is proving difficult with councils and spots and all that kind of stuff. So
I was just going to say that to people out there, whenever they see someone doing something really cool, just please just acknowledge how hard it is to actually do anything fun in this modern age of, hey, we've had so many great ideas, and suddenly it's like, you need a permit for that, or you need an XYZ, or there's a reason why you can't do it. So anyway,
or even trying to use like somebody's private property. I was like, hey, can we like use your front yard off this road? Blah blah. Oh well, no, like insurance is going to be too hard, and so come on. So we're going to try and find a way to do it, because like I love the idea of cars and coffees concepts and things like that, but you don't really get out and use your car when you're doing that. Like you're driving most of the cars and coffee places, unless you go down to the ones at Beck's Bakery with Dan Beck down Port Noarlunga or something like that. Like most, Unley, Belair, the ones at Cars and Chrome and all the ones in Adelaide anyway are really kind of like short city drives. And I love getting out in the hills, and I think a lot of our readers enjoy getting up in the hills too. So I reckon it'll be cool to like just find a random spot in the hills, let people know the day before or the morning of that we're in this spot, come up and see us would be cool. So yeah, we'll try and do that. But Friday night I'll have them available to order through the store online, so we'll be able to ship them anywhere in the world. Yep. So we'll have them up in the store, and we might also do some specials on some of the shirts as well. So if you wanted to get a shirt and support us and get a mag at the same time, it will be easier to do. And we'll also have the jumpers and the new stickers on there, and some of the old stickers too, which is pretty cool. Some of the car ones from AMF in 2018, which I still like. And I love them. Yeah, they're good. I got them on my toolbox, and they're always like, you got them on your laptop? Oh, yes.
I'm that guy.
You're that guy. You and Sam.
Yeah.
Is that when you thought it was going to be acceptable to stick a sticker on your laptop?
I think it still is. I don't know. I think it's cool. I don't know. Anyway.
I might put one of the new ones on the laptop. I don't know. I'm very anti stickers on laptops, but
whatever.
So yeah, I mean, the other cool stuff we got in there, we got that's actually an interesting one, is Sam from Seam Through Glass. So he's on there. Another feature story, but like I guess that's tying in now with him selling the car, which is kind of the end of the journey for him with that thing, which is pretty cool. I don't know, like that'd be a pretty hard thing for me. I'm not a hoarder, but I feel like if I spent that much time and effort in something, like had that much of an experience in something, it'd be pretty hard to try and cut off and move on from that. I don't know.
2 points. I think you are a hoarder. Because if you have a look at your garage, I think your garage suggests otherwise. So I just want to leave that.
They're all going to get used one day. Dude.
Also, like I agree with that, and I myself, I still have my first car, and even this Boxster, I haven't even driven it, and we've already been talking about trying to bring it home to Australia when we, like it's so I'm no different, but I do definitely say that, like, hey, if you've got the space and you've got the finances and the money to keep these things and to keep these artifacts and have this journey of your life kind of stashed up in a massive garage somewhere, then obviously that's what you want to do. But a 911T is a lot of money tied up in a thing, and if that represents the next project or the next adventure or the next thing, like I can see why you'd want to liquidate that cash and use it for something else rather than just kind of having it sit there in a car that you've done that, So yeah, I can see both sides.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be a fan out there who would think it would be pretty cool to kind of get that thing and totally have it, and I guess have the associated story with it as well, like. Even my 33 wagon, I love the fact that the previous owner had driven it up the Unadana track and off-roading and done all this crazy stuff. Like, I mean, that's a cool part of the history of the car. And I guess if you are looking for a car and, they're all pretty similar, and this one's got that story behind it. And,
yeah, that's cool.
Why not?
Sorry.
So yeah, we got him in there. We've got, the ice race. Oh yeah, I was really happy with like just the look and feel of how this thing turned out. So I just, again, new mag smell. Smells so good. It needs to be like smell-o-vision or something.
You have to order your own.
Get one.
Yeah. There's a way around this.
But yeah, and so even the stuff that like Felix shot and Bryce shot, and the way that story worked out for like Gardner Speed Week was really cool. I don't know. It's nice having like different takes on photography and and words other than just our own work in there as well. It's pretty cool. We got those people we can work with to do that. So
yeah, very proud. Very proud.
Yeah.
And I can categorically say the next one, issue 4, will not take 18 months to come. It will be this year.
Is that how long it was?
It's about that, something like that. So
that's okay.
But I think
things come to those who wait.
Yeah, I think the plan we're working to at this stage, and I guess we can scoop ourselves if we want to. I think to have issue 4 ready at the Adelaide Rally in December, early December. So that's, I think, the plan that we're working towards at this stage. And I see no reason why that won't happen other than we get anyway.
And if there is anyone who does want to advertise with us in the magazine as well, that would be greatly appreciated, and we'd love to discuss that with you further.
Yes.
Reach a very cool targeted audience of you lovely car fans.
So yeah, I guess we remove our cupped hands back, retreat our cupped hands back back towards ourselves. But so
we can't do it unless we have advertisers. So no. It's they're a critical component of having the magazine. So
yeah. So the other thing I've been up to, Luke, and I guess we can quickly touch on this.
I'm stuck reading the mag now again. Just looking
put it away. I was going to say that the terrible part of this is being in the UK and the way that shipping works is that pretty much everyone in Australia is going to see this before I do. So I'm not going to see my copy for another couple of weeks. But I think will have read it.
You should have it. You should have it in a week. It shouldn't be too far away.
Cool. Well, this is good. But yeah, so the cool thing, so we've talked about the negative parts of being in the UK, but the cool things is obviously the depth of motorsport and cars in Europe and the UK is second to none. And we got word, some friends and I got word the other day that a company called Lanzante Limited. Now, if you don't know, Lanzante were a privateer race team in the 1990s that ran the McLaren F1 GTR that won the 1995 24 Hours of Le Mans. And so obviously the F1 story is a pretty cool one. It was never designed as a race car. In fact, Gordon Murray actively designed it as a road car, and everyone says it's actually a very good touring road car, and it was never intended to be a race car. But a group of privateers used their financial influence to kind of twist McLaren's arm, and they built a racing version which really wasn't modified that heavily. There were a few extra vents and scoops and bigger wheels and a wing on the back and a roll cage and no interior, but otherwise it was pretty much a road car. And they went out to the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Lanzante ran the car for McLaren in the famous Ueno Clinic, I think I've pronounced that correctly, livery. They won. It was a wet race, and they beat all the prototypes. They beat the Porsche 962s and the all of this stuff, and it was quite a car. And you've got to remember that these cars were road registered, like they were road cars. You could have driven them to Le Mans, and I think it's the last time we'll ever see a situation where a GT car that could be legally driven on the road has won Le Mans. So Lanzante, that was 25 years ago, 1995, if we're talking anniversaries. So Lanzante had a bit of a window display celebrating that victory down in their sort of factory in their showroom, which is just south of London. It's about an hour south of London. And unfortunately, we couldn't go when they were open, but we got down there in the evening. And it was just really cool. They had the lights on in the showroom, and we just kind of an uncharacteristically hot English night. And we just kind of went and looked, and it was just myself and my friend George and 3 McLaren F1 GTRs just kind of there with no crowd around them, no fuss, just sitting there.
Was there anyone else there or not?
No, there was no one. It was just us.
Pretty cool.
It was very cool. So we got there for sunset, and then we went. George has a Renault Sport Clio RS 200, so we went for a bit of a burn around through the hills while it got dark, and then we came back in the dark to sort of shoot it. At night time, and
I mean, like
very cool.
The lighting that they had for those is cool. Like the way they had the cars lit up is sweet.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Do they usually have cars in there like displayed as well, or?
Yeah, they normally do. So I think any time you go past Lanzante, I think you're guaranteed to see something pretty special.
Yeah.
The 3 of them, and I thought it was very cool that the 3 cars all had road registered street plates, license plates on them. And I've seen 2 of them driving on the road before, like physically around Goodwood events and that. You sort of see them on the road, and I just think that's insane that a car that wins Le Mans has a road registration plate. And yeah, it's nuts.
Well, of that era anyway, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you expect it of like the 60s and 50s and so on and so forth. And
in the 90s, like, man, can you imagine a Porsche 919 hybrid, like with a street plate being driven down to the pub? Like the white car in that image. I got tipped off by a friend, Luke Gilbertson, and he sort of dropped a message sort of saying he sort of works in that industry, and he was actually in Lanzante. They do the road conversions of the McLaren P1 GTRs.
Oh, right.
He was lucky enough to be riding shotgun in the.
Because like their website has nothing on it. Hey, like when you said who it was, I was like, well, I don't even know who they are. I'll Google it. It's like the website is pictures, and then like one huge picture that rotates around with a few and a phone number, and it's like
they're building.
that must be cool stuff.
I thought this was the ultimate power move. Their building doesn't really have any signage on it. It's just the showroom with the 3 GTRs, and then they've got like a hedge around the front and a small sort of shale stone kind of wall. And there's just a small sort of sign that just says Lanzante with their logo, which is a sort of an elephant kind of prancing. And it's
like a cresty type thing, isn't it?
Cresty type thing. It's like maybe, I don't know, 8-10 inches across, and it just says Lanzante. No, nothing else. And you're like, okay, yeah, these people are serious when you don't really need to tell anyone who you are.
People come find you.
yeah, but no, that one of those GTRs, we saw after the Goodwood breakfast meet last year. I got a tip off that.
Cool.
We're stopping for a beer, and they literally P1 GTR and the F1 GTR. They stopped for a pub lunch just outside Goodwood, and managed to get there and catch it. It was very cool.
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, I mean that whole like story around how those privateer F1s came into being was pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's man, we don't need to talk about that because we could lose hours. We could absolutely lose hours. We're turning into those fanboys, that make the Star Wars tribute shows and that just sit and talk about.
Is that what we're not what we're doing?
Yeah, pretty much.
So speaking of fanboys,
lowering
Porsches. Speaking of UK, speaking of UK and things that we don't have in Australia, and we don't have super cheap Boxsters.
No.
Our Boxsters are still quite expensive.
That surprised me. They're not expensive here. They're quite cheap.
We've got Australia tax, I guess. Like, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
So
because that's like they're kind of like MX-5 or like cheap MX-5 territory over there, aren't they?
They MX-5s are expensive in Australia too compared to what they are here.
Getting expensive.
It's Mark III and NC MX-5 NC money. Really, I mean, to be fair, for a rough one, I think if you want a nice Boxster, they are still expensive, but the cheap ones are definitely MX-5 money. I think the difference is that the MX-5s kind of top out. So for a mid-range Boxster, you're getting quite a nice MX-5, but you definitely can get them down. So
because I did like Google around, and like the cheapest one I could find in Australia that was a manual was like, I don't know, 200 and something thousand Ks, and they were asking 15 for it, which is like still big money for like a old convertible sports car, you know.
And let's not beat around the bush. There is a hell of a lot that can go wrong. This could definitely head in tears. There's no way around that.
But I mean, like, it looks pretty nice.
So no, okay. Let me tell you the story.
Yeah. Let's go through. Give me the tip.
How it happened was our friend Andrew Metcalf, who is living in London. He's from Brisbane originally. I kind of met him through Instagram. We kind of started hanging out, and he messaged and he's like, "I've just bought a cheap Boxster," and I actually laughed at him. I genuinely laughed at him. I thought, "You are mad. You are crazy." Like, but yeah, sure. If it's your money, I'll come and have it. Sure. And then we went for a spin around London one night, just a short little drive to get a beer, and it was really nice. And I was like, this is not, I was like, okay, maybe not, And of course, there's a lot, this era, this sort of late 90s, early 2000s era of Porsche, there's a few failures, and they're kind of basically characterized by what's called the IMS bearing failure, the intermediate shaft bearing, which is a bearing on the intermediate shaft in the engine. And it's very nerdy, but basically they had a dual bearing.
What do they do?
So it's I'm not really a mechanic, so forgive me. The intermediate shaft in the engine, which transfers the power to a bunch of other parts in the engine.
Yeah.
Has a bearing on it. And basically in the earlier cars, it was a dual row bearing. But for the 2.7 litre and sort of in, the 996 era, 911, when they went water cooled, they changed to a single row bearing. And I don't think it was for cost reasons. I think it actually was for smoothness and for power. I think the dual row bearing probably sapped more power, and it was definitely rougher and it was louder. So they thought they were improving, but history has definitely proven that was a backward step, and these bearings fail. But the problem is that the intermediate shaft drives the cam timing. So when the bearing on the intermediate shaft fails, it throws the cam timing completely out, and it launches and destroys the engine. And there's no warning that it's going to happen. There's nothing. It's just toast.
Well, to be honest, I haven't heard it from it as like a Boxster trait, but very much like a 996, an early 996 trait. It's like, don't buy one IMS bearing.
So whenever you buy one of these cars, you need to be aware that this could happen. There are kits, like there are upgrade kits, you can fix it, but it's an engine and gearbox out job to put an updated kit. So it's a couple of £1,000s to do it. It can be done. But I mean, when you look into the statistics, it affects about 8% of cars. So it's really not as bad as everyone says. Like, it's not a 50%, it's not a 3/4 of cars. It affects actually 8%. So really the rumors are yeah,
but it's enough to, and as probably those people make enough noise that it becomes
so anyway, it's massive thing. But really, I mean, there are a lot of cars where there is a 1 in 8 chance that something, an 8% chance that something catastrophic is going to happen.
Or more.
So it's not really any different to like an old V6 Alphas, or I don't know, Ferrari V8s, all these nice old cars have a chance of something big happening. So anyway, so we're with Andy, and we did a sprint back before COVID, pre-COVID times. We did a sprint in his car down to Paris, and we drove down to Paris just an overnighter. We left early on a Saturday morning. We drove down, through the Eurotunnel. We sat on the French auto route. We sat at about 110 mile an hour the whole way down to Paris. Luckily, Andy has a bit of a slightly more cavalier attitude to his license than I do. So we kind of sat. And anyway, it just amazed me that this car was such a good cruising car, and it sat on 100 mile an hour like nobody's business, and it didn't have a rattle or squeak. It had an amazing stereo. It was the perfect car for the job. And I was like, and it cost a couple of grand. We actually looked into it. It literally cost about the same as certain trim stitching options on a new GT3. Like, that's the difference. And we were just
this costs the same as 20 meters of thread.
Yeah, literally that. And we're just, and he literally bought the car thinking, he's like, if I get one good road trip out of this before it shits the bed, I'm going to call that a win. And he's happy to walk away from it. And, and anyway, so after that trip for the last couple of months, it's just been gnawing away at me. I've just been reading about them and researching them. And all of this is gnawing away. And I've been thinking, maybe later in the year, maybe we could do this. It's a pretty cool thing. And, and then complete twist of fate, wasn't planned. In lockdown, I have a normal film, a camera shop that I use to develop 35mm film, and they were obviously closed in lockdown. So I did some Googling, and I found a new guy local that did remote film processing. So I arranged it, and I posted my film off. I completely forgotten that there were some 35mm film photos of our trip to Paris of Andy's Boxster. And so this guy rings me for payment, to pay. And in the conversation, it comes on, and he's like, "Oh, that's a nice Boxster you've got in your photos." And I sort of said, "Oh, it's not mine, blah, 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 blah." And he's like, "Oh."
That was the thing with film back in the day, right? Like, thinking of that, it's like, you shot anything, you got to process. Those guys are seeing it all.
They're seeing it all. Also, you forget what's on the film. Like, I kind of forgot that those photos were on there. Like, it was 4 months ago, yeah, and he sees everything, and he's like, yeah. So he's like, I've actually got one myself, and I was like, okay, cool, and he's like, I'm actually probably going to sell it in a couple of months. He's like, and I was like, how much do you want for it? And he's like, a couple of grand, and I was like, go on.
and
so we get talking, and the story goes, he bought it new. So it's a 2000s.
He bought it new.
He bought it new.
Brand new.
Right. Brand new.
Right.
£35,000 for it in the year 2000, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
It was the list price, £24,000 list price. He put £10,000 worth of options into it. So it has the extended leather, blue extended leather. So that's leather on the dash, the doors, the consoles. It has the sport option pack in the console. So it's got like all the GT3 sort of style, like the silver trim bits in the console. Has a hard top on it. Has the larger wheels. It has, a bunch of all of.
Were they the S wheels?
Not S. No, I think they're cup 2s.
Okay.
The Porsche nerds are probably screaming down there.
How do you not know what that is?
But they're the cup something wheels anyway.
You're almost starting to go like that though. You're getting into trim options and stuff. You're getting there. My Boxster's different because it's got this option and yours doesn't have that option. So mine's got paint to sample dash.
It almost does actually. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you remember the old PlayStation Porsche Boxter game?
Mate, yes. As we're chatting,
it was one of my most favorite ones.
Yeah. I was watching it on YouTube. I had the demo. I couldn't afford the real game.
Yeah, I had the demo too. Yeah. That was the best.
So this is why, I'm terrible at rational decisions. I'm a romantic when it comes to these things. And I forget, I don't look at Boxster twist, and it's just commented Boxster twist wheels. Yeah. So I don't really get too caught up in things like mechanical issues and reliability and costs. I get caught up in things like PlayStation 1 Boxster games.
All the nostalgic side of
feeding into it. And I'm like, oh man. Yeah. And anyway, so the story goes, he bought it new. He drove it as his daily car. And then 3 years ago, he decided he wanted a 911. So he replaced it with a 997 cab. And his plan was that his daughter was going to then take on the Boxster, but apparently insurance was just too expensive. So then it was going to go to his son, but then his son was living in London.
How can insurance be for a couple £1,000 car? How can that be expensive?
Oh, over here, the insurance, that's a whole other conversation. The insurance industry is crazy. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. So yeah, literally it probably I could for a new driver see it costing the value of the car to insure it every year. It's
insure the car, or do they do third party over there, or are they just no third party?
They do third party, but every quote I've had, third party costs the same as comprehensive, because the risk, I think the way that they feed into the risk calculators, they sort of say that if your car is not worth enough to you to bother insuring, then you're probably more likely to crash it and trash it, or be someone who's like a person of irrepute, you know what I mean? So I think they price it. Yeah, it's mental. Anyway, that's another conversation.
Wow. I don't know that. Yeah. When you've spoken to me about insurance costs over there, I've always been like that's just crazy. Just prices everything out.
For the first 2 years of us living here, we've got a Mazda 3 as our sort of daily car, and we paid about a third of the value of the car every year to insure it, and that was a pretty good deal based on what I got, because we just moved here from Australia. Most insurance companies just flat out said, no, sorry, we can't help you. And they just refused to help us. And the one company we found that would do it is like a third the value of the car a year to insure it. That's a Mazda 3.
What was the was it not was it Just Car no, who was the ones who used to do all the drifters and all that stuff? Just Car. Yeah, it's the Just Car of the UK. Yeah, we'll insure you, but it's going to cost heaps.
Just pick a random number out of the sky, and that's what it costs. So anyway.
Hey, Nigel, how much do we charge this guy?
Put an extra one on the front of it. How many digits? 5. Yeah. Anyway,
I spent £5.50 for my coffee. That's £550,000.
It's mental. So anyway, so what ended up happening with this Boxster is it sat in his drive for 3 years, and that's kind of why it was cheap, because he didn't touch it for 3 years. which is not good in one of those. And yeah, so he's like, come around. So we made a time, we went and had a look at the car, and Andy came around, and objectively, it had everything wrong with it that you should walk away from. Like, it had all of the problems.
Well, let's list them. What did you find? What did you find?
Okay. There's some bodywork stuff which doesn't really bother me. He backed it into a pole. So there's a cracked bumper on the rear, which I'll probably fix eventually. I think is a lesson I learned as well. Definitely clean bird shit off your bonnet when it lands, because it's got several spots on the bonnet where I think bird shit has literally been there for years, and it's burnt through all of the paint layers to the metal.
So the whole way through?
The whole way through to the metal.
Wow. Yeah,
little dots.
That's when, if you've got a car laid up like that, you really need like 8 years of dust on it, and then the bird poo can go on it, and then it'll be all right. That's fine.
He didn't have that. So the body issues, don't really bother me too much.
Yeah.
The biggest thing was that it needed a full service. It hadn't really been serviced for a while. And now that I look into the books, I don't think it's really been serviced since 2013, which is scary. But also, he hasn't done many miles. He's only done 15,000 miles since 2013. And then if you look at
how many kilometers?
20,000, 21,000 Ks. But that's actually the service interval. Like, the service interval is 15,000 miles. So on distance, it hasn't driven more than, but on time, it well and truly
That's
does.
that old argument again, right?
Yeah.
I don't drive my car often. Do I need to change the oil? Does oil go off?
Yes. So it needed a full service. It needed brakes. The brake pad light was on. It had, like, over in the UK, we have, MOT inspections, roadworthy inspections every year.
What's MOT stand for? I always see it and I always think, what is that?
I actually don't know. Ministry of Transport? No, that's a guess. I'm probably completely wrong. I don't know.
I'm going to Google that.
So basically, it needed a whole lot of stuff. The other issue it had is Boxsters. They have drain rails around the back of the soft top.
It is. The MOT test, Ministry of Transport test.
There you go.
You are correct.
Lucky guess. To be fair, everything in the UK is either the Royal something.
Or
something. So
I was surprised that it's not RMOT, Royal Ministry of Transport.
Royal Ministry of Transport. So.
Yeah, then we'll be driving Range Rovers and rolling them over on the street.
Anyway, so I had all these things. It probably the most concerning one is, so they've got these drain rails. And it's just a design flaw. The drain rails, the drain tubes kind of behind the doors, they block up with mud and crud. And then what happens is that the channels that collect the water, they fill up, and then the water leaks into the cockpit of the car, into the cabin. And the really scary part is that under the passenger seat is the ECU module that controls the alarm and the security and all of that stuff. And what happens is that gets wet. And then all sorts of bad things, and it's very expensive to fix, because you can't, as anyone who's worked on these sort of 90s 2000s cars knows, you can't just swap a security module. You need to do keys, locks, ignition barrels, like the whole thing,
body control module, blah blah, that kind of stuff.
It's massive. So and this had been leaking, and all of the carpet around that module was wet. So really a sane person.
Did you know, was this battery dead or battery live could test?
So the battery was dead. He had jumped started it
from
his 997 and had the engine running. So we did have the engine running.
Okay. All right.
So a sane person
start it and go, yeah.
So a sane person at this time probably would have thanked him for his time, had a good story, and then gone home. But I've gone,
not you.
Oh, mate, it's a really nice car and it's a great story. Like, the guy was really nice, and I was like, this is Porsche Challenge on PlayStation 1, Jerry Seinfeld in the first Boxster in California.
Driving down to Paris, like all this stuff happening.
And then you jump on Instagram and, you've got Ted Gushue and his 911 belting through Europe with the music. You're like, that could be me. And you're like, yeah. So anyway, we go
Silver Porsche.
So we go for a drive, and we do about 5 or 10 miles, and he didn't want me to drive, which I kind of get, because the thing wasn't taxed and wasn't insured and had no MOT on it, and he didn't know me from a bar of soap, so I kind of get that. But he took me for a belt, and we did 6 miles, and the thing drove really well. Like, there was no clonks. It was really, really good. And to be fair, Andy, I think, is listening. Andy's car that we did the trip to Paris, it drove exactly the same. Like, it felt exactly the same as his car felt. And I was like, okay, so we went home. We had a very, very late night that night, a few glasses of wine, evaluating. Basically came to the
Was that the night you're up till like sunrise?
No, that was a different night. That was the weekend before. I think we were up to sunrise, but that was a different. Yeah, anyway. So we kind of did the sums, priced up what it needed, came to the conclusion that the money he was asking was a little bit more, I felt, than it was probably worth. Because obviously, if you have to do too much work, then you're getting into the point where you could just buy a nice one that works. You know, they're not that expensive.
Yeah, and that's always like the argument you have with things is like try and buy the best version of what you can afford, not buy a cheap one and try and do it up because you always end up spending more money. So
yeah. And then, of course, at this time, wise people, Sander Pickering, Boys Own Garage, who might be listening, is messaging me the famous quote, "There is no such thing as a cheap Porsche." I reckon I can prove you wrong.
I'll take that challenge.
So anyway, so we're doing the sums, and I kind of, talked about it, arrived at a price that I thought was probably fair given the risk, given I hadn't driven the car. He agreed to put it through an MOT test before I bought it, so at least we'd know kind of what we're in for.
Yep.
And yeah, basically, long story short, we kind of back and forth, and he agreed. He accepted the lower offer. He went through the MOT test. It came back. Oh, the other thing, the air conditioning's not really working that well. So
does that matter over there?
Not really. No.
You get like what, 30, 31?
31, yeah. I mean, it was 34 the other day, yeah. But no, to be fair, it probably would be useful for like demisting in winter, like when it's quite cold and it gets very foggy inside. Having the AC on but with heat does help to sort of defog the car. So, but yeah, so there's a few things, and we talked about it long and hard, and in the end, we're just like, stuff it. I think the key for these cars, and I think what a lot of people don't, I think you don't want to be stressed. You don't want to be under financial stress, and we couldn't really afford this. Like, we didn't really have a couple of grand just sloshing around to blow, but also I can afford to walk away from it if it all turns to complete shit. Like, I mean, it would be hard, but I can do it, and it's always worth something as parts. I worked out I can probably get 2/3 of the money back as parts.
Well, you got hard top, you've got all the optioned interior stuff.
All the optioned interior, there's good wheels, So I think that, we're talking that I think the scary part is that if you start to get into the 996s and the 911s and the later Boxsters that still have this same problem, I see people all the time take out finance to buy these cars with the same risk levels. And it's like, man, if you had you need to be able to afford to walk away from it. I think that's what makes it fun.
That's the same story with like watching when you're working at Land Rover, watching all the people finance themselves to the hills to buy an old out of warranty Range Rover, and then have airbag compressors for the springs going. Then it's like, we're not eating for 4 months.
Seriously, I used to see it all the time. People would get themselves into situations where they can just afford the payments on the car, but then something goes wrong and they can't afford to fix it, but they can't afford to not fix it. And then they're caught in these awful situations of having a dead car that's costing them X amount a month to have sitting there dead. And it's just, I have no interest in getting in that situation. Zero interest in that. So what makes this possible is that you can kind of walk away from it if you have to. But
so
anyway,
so day comes.
Pick it up.
Pick it up. Here we go. I'll put up a picture. Display the picture. Hang on. Talk about the picture.
So this is myself and Nigel. I thought that's his 997 in the background that he replaced it with. I thought it was very good. He requested that we stay in touch, and he wants to see the pictures of what we do with it, which is good, because I think if he knew that it was about to fall apart, he would have not wanted to speak to me ever again. But the fact that he requested to stay in touch and that he did ask me to let him know if we sell it, he give him first right to buy it back if we had to sell it. So,
but that's it now. Like, you're a part of the Porsche community now. That's it. You're in.
Kind of.
You are. That's it. No. You haven't bought a 944. You haven't bought arguably 928s are getting cool again, but you don't have a 944, a non-turbo 944. You don't have a 928. Like, it's not a Cayenne.
It's a flat six. It sounds like one.
Flat six Porsche.
Dude, it is identical to a 996 from the A pillars forward is identical to a 996. this is the other thing. So the picture you've got here is the two keys. I get so nerdy over this stuff. HR Owen are one of the big iconic sort of luxury supercar dealers in the UK. And yeah, he bought it from HR Owen, and it's still got the stickers on the front and the rear windows. It's got the 2 key rings from HR Owen on both of the keys. Like, it's got all of the stuff. Yeah, as I was sort of poking around the car, tucked in behind the driver's sun visor is the original little sort of plastic card, sort of telling you how to use the soft top roof with the Porsche part number on the bottom. It's so nerdy. I don't know.
Yeah, and then like the paint.
The touch-up paint is still there. I might need to use it actually. So
don't
use later if it still works. And that's the picture here. That's the first tax disc from 2001 from the car. So it's got like a lot of cool.
I mean, that's stuff that you can't. That's story stuff you can't find unless you find like a single owner car. Which is,
I know it's a bit like, you know what, you could buy more expensive ones, but most of them you're talking like 5-owner cars that have got a story that's as long as your leg about this happened, and you don't know if it's been crashed, and you don't know all of this sort of stuff. And I've sort of reasoned with this one that there's some questions, but it's like, I know the guy's legit. I know he hasn't crashed it. I know that it's all as genuine as you ever hope to find. And yeah, so I picked it up from him. I drove it 30 miles home, and the drive home was really good. Like, there's a few small things. The big one is that the battery is complete toast for years. So it was kind of having low voltage issues the way home with lights flickering. But I think once it gets a new battery with some proper voltage in it, that should fix that.
No, you got to leave it. That makes you feel like you're driving an old Italian car again. Use the lights and everything drops.
The first time I jumped on the brakes, all the dash LCDs dimmed when I jumped on the brakes the first time, and I was like, "Oh my god, what have I done?" And then I had the windows down, and then I went to put the 2 windows up, and I accidentally pushed the switch. Like, I pushed them down, and when you go the wrong way and they're already down, it goes like,
it puts a lot of load on the motor. Yeah,
and the whole dash lights dimmed, and it chucked a warning flashed up on the dash, and I was like, took my hands off, and it stopped. And I was like, okay, so I'm not going to get too worried about that until we get a new battery into it. The other thing that was very awkward about it is that the alarm system is very much geared to like low voltage, and it trips the alarm when the battery goes completely flat, and then when you jump at the first time. So basically what happened was, I drove it home. I got home, and a long-suffering girlfriend, Chantel, fiance. Yes. I was like, come on.
We'll edit that bit out later.
Come on. I was like, we've got to go for a drive. This is so cool. And she's like, oh, do I have to? And I was like, look, I'm going to be working on this thing for a few weeks before I get it, so we can use it. And I was like, I just want you to experience like how nice it is, because it is really nice. They drive for a couple of grand car. They drive so well, and they are tight, and they don't have a rattle or squeak in it. It is like a real cool experience. And I was like, I just want you to kind of just know what we're aiming for here, so you kind of get it. And again, she was like, okay. Basically, I think she was humoring me, and she's like, okay, we'll come for a short drive, but except the battery was dead, so I had to then jump start it off the Mazda, which then tripped. Basically, the Mazda couldn't produce enough voltage through the jumper leads to start the Porsche because the battery was so dead. And so I had her sitting in the Mazda, like revving it at like 3,000 RPM for like 2 or 3 minutes, hoping to get enough voltage, and it wouldn't. But then it kept repeatedly tripping the alarm. So it was sitting there with the alarm just going, bah, 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 while the engine won't start, and it's just turning into a catastrophe. And our neighbors came out to see what was going on. And in the end, we didn't drive the car, and we just had to push it away. So her
best possible first impressions.
First impressions weren't the best. But no, the cool thing about these cars is that the online community for them is ridiculous. And being an enthusiast car, the amount of resources available online and instructions. I mean, I'm going to need to try and do most of the work myself. I'm going to try to start off with the full service. I'm going to clean the drain rails out. I'm going to pull most of the interior out to try and dry it out and make sure that it's not leaking anymore. The other thing that came back on the MOT is it failed because some of the brake lines were rusty, which is quite a common thing in the UK because the weather's terrible. And so that's not common, but it is a pain in the ass, because obviously the front to rear brake lines in a mid-engine car can be a bit awkward. So we're going to need to sort that out. I'm not sure if I can do that myself or if I'll need to enlist some help for that.
You need some help to do some bleeding of the brakes or something like that. But I mean, like replacing the lines, you should be all right doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
as long as you don't have to manufacture the lines yourself, if you could just buy them off the shelf.
No, you have to manufacture. You have to make them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think the Porsche ones are crazy expensive. But talking to the workshop, the other thing is I got to speak to the workshop that have been maintaining this car for the last 15 years, and they were really nice guys. Awesome. But they quoted on the brake lines, and they quoted £1,200 to replace the brake lines. I was a bit like, whoa. But it turns out that the way they do it is they drop the engine and transmission to do it. And I was like,
oh, wow, okay.
I'm not doing that. So I think you can do it. It's just a bit awkward. So yeah, so basically it's I bought this car mostly just because I really want it, and our plans are the ultimate goal is to try and get across for a sort of a late summer road trip out to Switzerland, Europe, or up to Scotland somewhere. Do something in it if everything goes well. I'm fully expecting that it might not go well. So I guess we'll see. But it's a bit of a challenge because I can work on cars. I can do it, but I'm not a mechanic by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a really skilled guy. And over here I have basic hand tools. I don't have a garage or a shed. I'm going to be doing all outside on our gravel driveway because I don't even have a hard surface to work on. It's going to be all just lying in the gravel.
Do you remember how painful that is to do? Remember when we tore, like we had a hole in the sump of the 147 and we had to change the sump. You came over and we changed the sump in the driveway at Strath. Yeah. And it was like gravel driveway and you're lying in it and you try and put things down and then you have to move and you get gravel in your butt and you drop a tool and you drop a screw and it goes in the gravel and you're like, you can't get it. Yeah. Oh, you have fun.
But the weather's going to be good. Basically, the rough plan is the weather's, we're in summer here. So if we can get it sorted in the next couple of months while the weather's half good,
you'll be right.
And hope that it's running by winter because I don't want to be out lying on my back in rainy, cold winter. But from what I've researched, I've got some stuff coming. The support out there to work on them is second to none.
It's not quite as good as having your dad around retired with a shed and just say, Dad, can you do that while I'm away?
No. So I'm kind of looking forward to the challenge though, that I just need to kind of figure it out. It's actually, from what I can tell, I guess we'll report back and I'll let you know if this is accurate or not, but it seems like it's actually reasonably easy to work on. You can take the cover off behind the seats that cover removes so you can access the front of the engine. You can get in under it quite well. So yeah, I guess we'll see how we go. And I guess the idea is to kind of have it as a bit of a sports car safari project car. I'm going to be doing some updates on the Instagram page, stories, just kind of good, bad, ugly. Hopefully it ends with a glorious road trip to Switzerland. It might end with a tow truck towing it off into the distance of flashing lights with oil pooling out under it.
Off to the wreckers.
Off to the wreckers. So yeah, well, either way, I think it'll be a bit of an adventure.
Yeah, so you do some Instagram stories, some posts, do some blog posts on it too, maybe?
Yeah. We'll do some blog posts. And
just maybe with some more like nerdy detail stuff in it would be cool.
Yeah. So I mean, to be fair, one nerdy detail, I'm expecting an Amazon shipment today. I was looking, job one is to clean these drain rails out, to stop the water from leaking into the car and flooding,
destroying all the electronics.
Yeah, kind of an important thing. Yeah. And but there was this tutorial on YouTube, and this guy it was like 10 minutes, went through every step of how you put the roof into service mode, how you get to the drain rails. He listed the Porsche part numbers if you need to replace these little cup channels, the part numbers. He then had, like, they'd worked out that there's a trombone cleaner, and it's a long flexible metal. It's like 1.5 meters long. It's a flexible kind of metal rod with nylon brushes on each end, which is designed to be shoved to a trombone to clean inside a trombone.
Right. And they to like circle around
to circle around. Do all this. So they'd kind of worked out that that's the ideal tool to clean the drain rails out.
Right.
And he'd linked to Amazon of like, it's £8. Here's the trombone cleaner you need to do this job. And, so that sort of support's out there. So I'm quietly confident that I can work it out. If not, it's you can all laugh at me. So
and Xander can message you and say, "Told you so." Well, I hope you prove us all wrong. I hope I hope this experiment kind of shows that there are some really cool, cheap, 90s cars out there that give a far greater driving experience than what the value is, and you can get them and do a bit of work on them and keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nick Dickens commented on a post I made, and he was in Sports Car Safari issue 1. He had the brown, beautiful brown 911, but he reckoned, and I'm not sure if I agree with his percentages, but he's kind of on the money when he reckoned that like a Boxster is basically 85% of a GT3 for 5% of the money. And I'd maybe say it's 70% of a GT3 or 65% of a GT3. But the point remains that it's a hell of a lot closer to a GT3 than an MX-5 is or a normal Stan is for jump change, really.
Oh,
it's I
mean, like,
just a quick one. Michael Busby's asking, does high RPM cause the bearing failure? No. The school of thought, there's two schools of thought out there that a lot of people tend to think that if it, like in a higher mileage car, so this has done 121,000 miles, so it's nearly 200,000 kilometers, that if it's lasted this long, then it's probably going to be pretty good, and that it tends to affect low mileage cars that don't get used very much. It seems to be. That is up for debate. The other sort of thought is that actually revving them out and driving them and sort of spinning them out to 6,000-7,000 RPM actually helps splash them, actually helps lubricate them more. So there's a lot of people that think that actually driving the cars hard actually is better for the IMS. It actually splashes the oil and kind of keeps it more lubricated. Whereas if you kind of putt around town and just idle it through the gears, it doesn't get that same oil pressure to it, and that's when it fails. To be fair, I'm probably just going to drive the car as I would drive it hard, but don't abuse it and hope for the best, basically.
you are pretty sympathetic to cars and stuff like that. So you have very good mechanical sympathy when you're driving. So
probably too much. Every little noise, I'm like,
Yeah, remember we had that higher Megane, and you were like mortified that I did a clutch dump in it. That's hilarious. You're like, don't do it, you'll break something. It's like, nah, it's fine.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all for driving cars hard, and I'm all for driving them fast and finding rev limiters and track days and the whole works. But I don't do the clutch dumps and the really abusive, smashing through gears and all that. Really, no, I'm pretty.
That's why you do hire cars. Haven't you watched Days of Thunder? That's why you get a rental.
I'll be treating this one like it's made of glass, I think. But yeah,
what was that noise?
I mean, that's the other thing. It might end up with me selling it and replacing it with an MX-5 because I hope not, but I'm worried that maybe every noise I'll be so nervous that something major is about to go wrong that I want to just swap it for something that's
no, not for that much money. I don't think you are. I mean, like when Nick was talking about like the whole like driving experience of a GT3, I found a book that I got from my grandfather that was like the period, Porsche Boxter story book that was shot by John Lamb, and it's pretty cool because it goes through some of the production of the car and the concepts and all that kind of stuff. I literally was sitting there talking to my wife Ruth, and I looked at the bookshelf and I'm like, I got a book on Porsche Boxers. What? So I was like messaging Andrew about it, and I'm looking at the engineering pictures of the production, like looking at the gearbox and the engine, and like, I mean, it's like proper mid-engine engineered cars. Really cool. Like looking at the sub thing and everything. I mean, one of the cool pictures I liked was of like the standard Goodyear tires on that period with like the big triangle pattern, asymmetrical pattern. That was cool. You got to get a set of those. Probably drive terribly, but
who cares? The thing is that they're just so well engineered that like they are, I just the other day I did some work on a Mazda. I did a service and new brakes were around on the Mazda and the driveway just as before I paid for the Porsche. I was like, all right, I need to actually do like a day's work on the driveway and see if I can. And it was fine. It was fine. But one thing after critically looking at the Mazda compared to the Porsche, Mazda's rust over here, MX-5's rust, and the thing just isn't built as well. Like you look underneath and all the subframes have got surface rust and the bolts are, and it's fine. They're bulletproof. Like it'll go forever. But it's just working on it. It's just, there's pressed bits of metal, and it's just not that nice. Where the thing over here with Boxsters, they don't rust. Like, even with all the salt and the crap and the weather that we get over here, Boxsters, they just don't rust.
Just the brake lines they probably got from Japan.
Yeah. I mean, that's the brake lines are. They're kind of classed as disposable in the UK, really. But yeah, you stick your head under it, and it's beautiful bits of cast aluminium, and the quality of the car, it looks so much better underneath this Boxster, even though it's 8 years older. It looks 10 years newer than the Mazda does, just because the quality of everything, it's just a much higher quality piece of engineering than. And look, you wouldn't be surprised. It also cost 3 or 4 times the price, so you would, you shouldn't be surprised. But it's, I guess now when you get those cars, that quality is still there. Like, it's still, a cast aluminium suspension arm is still a cast aluminium suspension arm. Like, it does. Yeah, it's a cool thing. It's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's cool. So yeah, I guess keep an eye out on the stories, on the grams, for Andrew's highs and lows on that.
And I'm continuing to share all of the highs and lows.
In everything. You can't leave anything out.
So if I can't get a bolt off and I'm swearing, I'll swear on the SCS Instagram stories.
Please, please do. I'll be looking forward to that. Yeah, so I guess, coming up, look out Friday night, getting the mag online, get into it. It's pretty cool. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And while you're there, have a look at the merch, buy some stuff. Help support us would be great.
We have a cheap Boxster to fund now. So. Please buy a t-shirt.
No. We need more, because I need to get my not so cheap Boxster over here. Anyway, cool. Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Thanks, Luke. It's been real.